Shalom, shalom, all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rahakadash, the one of the apostles and elders of Great Millstone rule well. Peace, salutations, and blessings to the elect, pushing the word across the four corners of earth, risking your life to do so. Shalom to you. And I just wanted to do a lesson on this particular report. I was watching this Edomite go over, or what appears to be an Edomite. I'm going to assume he is, but you don't necessarily know, because a lot of these people who believe they are advocates for justice and fairness and all that, a lot of times it's really Jacob. Then sometimes it is an Edomite, and they're just disgruntled because their own people are stealing from them. All right, and that's why it's so important for us to stand out on the highways and byways and actually go to the streets and evaluate people's spirit so you can know who you're dealing with and the message they need to receive. All right, that's part of waking up your people. You got to actually go and see what they're saying and see if, for what it say, try the spirit. But without further ado, because people don't understand how big what's going on is. And we already knew about Fauci. We knew he was full of shit as soon as he opened his mouth. But this stuff with the Maxwell's and the Epstein, this is huge. This is larger than everybody is actually giving credit for.
First months of 1991, a yacht the length of a city block slides up the Hudson. The Lady Ghislaine, it's named for the owner's favorite daughter, and the man on its deck is, in that winter, on top of the entire world. He's just bought the New York Daily News, an Englishman sweeping in, buying one of New York's own newspapers, saving it from going under. And the Big Apple is in love with him for it. Cab drivers stop their cars in the middle of the street just to shake his hand. Strangers ask him for autographs. He walks into the most exclusive restaurant in Manhattan, and the entire room rises to its feet and applauds. One of his men picks up a phone and dials his great rival, Rupert Murdoch. And on that phone, they leave a message that says, "Mr. Murdoch, Bob Maxwell would like you to know that he's just bought the New York Daily News." Then 8 months later, that same yacht is drifting off the Canary Islands in the dark, and Bob Maxwell is gone, over the side sometime before dawn. They pull his body out of the ocean that afternoon, with the official ruling eventually being a heart attack and then drowning. In those 8 months, between the standing ovation and the water, nothing really changed for Bob Maxwell, except the fact that the truth was starting to catch up with him. That man who received the applause all those months ago was secretly and catastrophically broke. The empire underneath him was a shell. And to keep it standing one more month, he had been quietly stealing hundreds of millions of pounds out of his own companies, including the pension savings for the people who worked for him. He died a thief, and died just days, maybe, from the whole thing coming out. And after his death, a country that wasn't even his own gave him a funeral fit for a head of state. They flew his body to Jerusalem, with the president of Israel giving the eulogy and the prime minister standing at the grave, with a row of the country's intelligence chiefs coming to see him buried on the Mount of Olives, the most sacred ground there is. And this man was British, by the way, and no British prime minister came. The country he'd spent 50 years lying his way into didn't send its leader, and this other one buried him as if he were a king. And that is a great starting point for this video. What does a man have to be worth? What does a man have to be holding to lead to that kind of celebration of his death, or celebration of his life, depending on how you look at it? A foreign government burying him like a head of state days after he drowns as a bankrupt thief. By the way, you already know this family. You know the daughter, the one who is serving 20 years for helping Jeffrey.
Shalom, shalom. And yes, I had to let him cook. But basically, the dude he was talking about is Ghislaine Maxwell's father, right? The same one who was head of McGraw-Hill. It's McGraw-Hill, basically the company that edits the school books, which Elder Malcolm has been talking about for years, how they edition by edition they omit certain key information. right? Or they just omitted it from the very beginning. But yeah, they omit certain information. This is one of the guys. Right, the scriptures talk about Babylon being the glory of the Chaldees. Right, the Chaldees being those sorcerers, you know, those left-handed priests who are high up. Right, and that's these people, the tiny tops, the little coverings. Like you said, this guy was a thief. He stole millions of dollars. I guess maybe they finally caught up to him. I'm not sure what really happened, you know, in that drowning. But he stole millions of dollars from his own workers, and he had to be buried. But in Israel, they buried him like a king. Like he said, the most sacred burial ground, the Mount of Olives. That's why that land has to be purified too. Because they took the whole chief part of our land, as is prophesied. All right, but I'll let them continue.
Epstein abused girls, Ghislaine Maxwell. The boat her father drowned beside was named after her, and of all 9 of his children, she was his favorite, the Lady Ghislaine. With the insane firestorm that the Epstein files has been over the last couple years, when you hear the name Maxwell, you immediately think of Ghislaine Maxwell and then Epstein and then the island, and the chances are you completely miss what the rest of this family was secretly building. In fact, in the mid-90s, one of the search engines fighting to organize the early internet back when a dozen of them were at an all-out war over how you'd find anything online years before Google one was built by Maxwell. Not Ghislaine, but her older sister, Christine Maxwell. And the
So these people, and they said the father had, the New York Post, one of them big name magazines. The whole thing I'm trying to get to is, these are the people who own the media. These are the people who own all of these news stations, and people with nice suits on, and, you know, $50,000 cameras and big television networks. You know, they're doing a sit down like they're really trying to tell you the truth. They're telling you a version of the truth. All right, the scriptures talk about what they do. The mouth is smoother than butter, but smoother than oil, Salaki. But war was in his heart. All right, they make a man an offender for a word. So the same machine which these people are a part of, which this is just one family. This is only one family that we're evaluating here. This is the same machine that's going to come after and try to persecute the Israelites, right, us for teaching the truth. And mainly the brothers of Great Millstone, man, who teach 100% truth. All right, now all these other camps, they are Israel, they're Israelites, but they're not teaching, in most cases, if they're not, they ain't teaching 100% truth. I just put it like that. All right, what does it say? You would go up before kings and governors and people who are in high positions. All right, but the scriptures also say, take no thought of what you're gonna say. I put it on your spirit, and that's what the Lord is having us do, man. Rolling in the spirit, according to His words. We're in the spirit. Now, these people have operated in dark for years, but now that we're pushing this light, right, which this light is this word, this holy word, which is used to decode all of the dark sayings and parables of the scriptures. Matter of fact, let me get a scripture. I'm not going to even make this long. I had some other scriptures lined up. All right, Psalms 49 and 1, a psalm for the sons of Korah. Hear this, all ye people. Give ear, all ye inhabitants of the world. Both low and high, rich and poor together. Rich and poor. And the time is coming where rich and poor, free and bond, right, aka low and high, you're going to have to receive this mark, which these people have been procuring. All right, basically, what the dude is going to break down, I'm going to let him finish a little bit, how this is a family who bought in during the time of the second industrial revolution, because you had the first which introduced all the factories and shit, made this place rich. Right, all the trade routes and the ports and all that stuff was established. Right, the second industrial revolution is basically when the internet popped off. Right, we know the scriptures talk about the internet. Right, which helped this word be pushed to the four corners of the earth chiefly. Now we're coming, which a lot of those Amalekites, those tiny tops, they owned the factories during the first revolution. During the second industrial revolution, they jumped in on that, the .coms and all of that stuff. We know who has that wrapped up, Facebook and all these different platforms run by the tiny tops. All right, now we're coming to the third industrial revolution, where they're going to build upon the first two and introduce the MOTB. All right, so it all flows together. The scriptures all flow together. Right, Psalms 49:3, my mouth shall speak of wisdom, and the meditation of my heart shall be of understanding. I will incline my ear to a parable. I will open my dark saying upon the heart. And see, you have to have the light to understand the dark saying. All right, the dark saying is a mystery, a parable. It's been a mystery for years. Who is this people? Who are they? Where do they come from? I remember growing up, people used to say, where do these white people come from? And you look up and there's no clear answer. You get a lot of stuff. Well, the Caucasians from the Caucasus Mountain. Okay, so some of them are from that region. And then they went here, but there was never like a set timeline for everything that you can, you know what I'm saying? Like they do with so-called Mexicans, so-called Native Americans. They have an exact timeline where we were. Okay, you were over here in Florida, then you went up here, then there were these three great wars, and then we sent you over here along the Trail of Tears, and then you went through this region below the Appalachians, down through Arkansas, and through they all the way to Oklahoma. Black people, they'll trace you. Okay, you were here in the Mississippi Delta region, and then you went up here. With these people, they've kept everything shrouded in mystery. The scriptures say they cover the faces of the judges. So they'll make it seem like we're originally from Israel. We are those people, and here's the faces. And now we're finding out all of this was a lie. The light. All right, verse 5, wherefore should I fear in the days of evil, when the iniquity of my heels shall compass me about? All right, we're being compassed with iniquity right now. The scriptures talk about that corruption shall flourish. The truth shall flourish, yes, but corruption is at its highest form. All right, during the rule of the Edomites. Esau is the end of the world. Jacob is the beginning of it that follows. What marks that world where Jacob is ruling? The return of the Lord and Savior. All right, who is one of the sons of Jacob. The king of the sons of Jacob. Right, it says, they that trust in their wealth and boast themselves in the multitude of their riches, none of them can by any means redeem his brother, nor give to the Most High a ransom for him. For the redemption of their soul is precious, and it ceaseth forever. All right, so regardless of how rich you are, how powerful you are, because that's what these people have did. They lied and cheated, to get themselves into power. He just showed it how they ripped these people off. Which Edomites have been doing that for years with these trust funds and pension plans, and that's a huge, heavy stuff. Right, unions and all that shit. That shit been corrupt since day one. For he seeth that wise men die, likewise the fool and the brutish person perish and leave their wealth to others. Their inward thought is that their houses shall continue forever. So these people, are so prideful, they believe that they're going to go on forever through this third industrial revolution with this MOTB. Because conventionally, that is what happens. You die, you leave your wealth to your children, and they continue. But these people believe they're going to become God. Right? And their dwelling places to all generations, they call their lands after their own names. Right? That's chiefly what happens here in America. That's, some places are named this and that, but chiefly New York, New England, Washington Avenue, Nevertheless, man being in honor abideth not, he is like the beast that perish. Right? The scriptures liken man to a beast. Matter of fact, when it say the Lord created all creeping things, and it's talking about man as well. All right, so when we tell you the serpent is also a man from the garden, but he's likened unto a serpent. So man is likened unto a serpent, right? A sorcerer, a soothsayer, which right now they're in the same lot. These are the people who own the music labels, right? Why do you guys talk about that so much? Because these musicians, they sing these psalms. They get spirits on them. They sing these psalms, and then people follow the psalms, right? It's a jingle. It's a song. These are the people who are behind it, putting out evil spirits. See, us, we come to establish what the Lord said. Right? Every man is Brutus by his own thoughts. See, we're the rain on their gay parade. We wash the filth and expose everything. And that's another way you know we're at the end. Right? Because the truth is starting to spring forth, like we always bring out. But I'm gonna let them speak a little more, and I'm gonna close it out. I'm not gonna make this long. You can go check this video out for yourself. It's a good video.
But her older sister, Christine Maxwell, in the software that would a few years later end up running the FBI's main counterterrorism database.
Their family runs the software that the FBI uses for their counterterrorism database. Their father was, come on.
Single system holding 659 million records on people came from a Maxwell also. It's becoming clearer and clearer that Epstein was some form of an intelligence asset and was, rubbing shoulders with spies. The Maxwells, a lot of people have said, were spies. But at the very least, if they weren't spies, they were something stranger and quieter and potentially more influential and dangerous. They were a data dynasty, controlling the flow of information, owning it, selling it, and steering it during essentially the second industrial revolution of the Western world. Exactly. That is the era of modern data. Now, very scary, lots of information. A lot of it's based on a book called Fall by John Preston, and a lot of it is just from the internet, straight up. There's another book that is much darker and far more contested, and we'll get into that when we have to, but it's about the Maxwell family in regard to a lot of much darker, more contested stuff to be out there is one of the quietly more brilliant and quietly more poisonous business ideas of the century, the 20th century as a whole. The trick is scientists do research, usually paid for by universities or by the public through grants. Then they write it up and hand it to a journal for free. Other scientists check it for free because it's science. And the journal then sells that research back to the very universities whose libraries literally cannot function without it. The labor is completely free. The demand never stops, and somehow Maxwell saw it before almost anyone else alive.
So this guy was in the information business. This guy who was an intelligence asset for the Israeli government was in the information business. He used that process to sell back, like you said, sell journals full of information and science. And that's why a lot of this science is out it's complete bullshit because Esau's done this for a while. All right? You want to look at science, read through the scriptures. All right, but and you could do it. You'd actually do an entire lesson. I'll probably go back and look through some of the stuff that they wrote about, because I know it's bullshit and I know it's full of lies. But this is who we're dealing with. This is the people in charge of all of the high levels of research and science. And this guy was high up, and he was a military guy, right? Supposedly a high level academic, a guy who was Jewish, but he moved on to Britain, and then pretending like he wasn't, and then later on reconnected with his roots as a little cover, and changed his name multiple times doing so, of course. All right, hey, that's why this place, the scriptures talk about the house of the thief being destroyed. Right, by this whole kingdom was built on robbery, lies, and corruption. And their whole family, not just one guy, not just one people, a circle of people, a clique. No. Your entire people, this is you.
Maxwell.
People who have changed their name, changed their identity, changed history, changed science, changed the image of the Heavenly Father and His Son. And you got to pay for this.
Looked at it and saw a gold mine. So he went around the slow old academic societies and signed up scientists directly. Started launching journals by the 100, brand new one for every little subfield that he could find. And he created a machine. Research is not interchangeable. You can't decide one study is close enough and then just swap in another the way you'd grab like a different brand of cereal off the shelf. There's no substitute for the exact paper you need. So every journal that Maxwell launched became a tiny little monopoly. And if a serious library wanted to keep its researchers current, it had to buy all of them. He built thousands of figurative little greedy toll booths and planted one in front of every doorway in science. That's why to this very day, if you're not sitting inside of a university and you go to read a piece of publicly funded research, you hit a paywall with a price tag. It's insane. You can thank Bob Maxwell for that. By the early 1990s,
you can thank them for that.
Pergamon was running more than 400 scientific journals. But obviously, the information that only scientists wanted was never going to be enough for old Bob. So in the 1980s, he went after the kind that everyone consumes, mass media. He wanted to be Rupert Murdoch 2.0. Another man who understood that the real power isn't in making things, it's in controlling what people get to know. So he started buying the channels themselves. In 1981, he seized control of Britain's biggest printing company, the operation that he would eventually build into the Maxwell Communication Corporation. And in 1984, he bought Mirror Group Newspapers, which is the home of the Daily Mirror, one of Britain's biggest tabloids. In 1988, he bought the American publishing giant Macmillan for $2.6 billion. And in 1990, he launched a pan-European paper simply called The European. And obviously, he eventually bought the New York Daily News. So he went from selling scientific journals to a few thousand...
Okay, the New York Daily News. Like I said, the New York Post.
...scientists to deciding what millions of people read.
Exactly. So, and that's the point. You can go watch it. This guy has a lot of interesting research on this particular video. But basically, yeah, this is the glory of the Chaldees. This is the place where the Lord allowed them to profit the most, right? Through sorcery, through bewitching the minds of the people. And now all of that is at an end. The Lord did a miracle by waking us up to the truth of who we are. And this just goes to show you the power of the Lord. All of these books, all of these articles, news, all of this shit that these people have created, which a lot, again, a good portion of it, probably most of it, is lies. That's why you have to have the knowledge of the Holy Bible, all right, the light. And I'm going to just cut it right there. Call Loyam Laya How about Shema Shai and a Bible Ball.